Let us continue with some exhibits, some photographic images of fractography. Now some images from ductile failure, ductile fracture. This is 304 stainless steel, a type of a ferritic steel, has a face-centered cubic crystal structure, FCC. So it fractures in the ductile mode through a wide range of temperatures. At 1000 times magnification, the image shows dramatic deformation at high temperature. It also shows voids which form in a metal under triaxial stresses. The typical dimples, right? Dimples, lots and lots and lots of dimples. And you can call it a honeycomb structure, like where honey is formed by the honeybees, honeycomb or dimples. Same thing, 304 stainless steel, but now at 2500 times magnification. So you are going much closer, much closer. You can see all the dimples and you can see the second phase or impurity particles. Images show pockmarked dimples, surfaces that characterize microvoid coalescence. Visible deep within several of the craters are small contaminants, impurities that were the origin of these voids. These particles acted as stress concentrations when triaxial stress was applied by the load on the sample, right? So contaminant is impurity, crater is a small hole, right? Pockmarks are, you see on some faces of people on the cheeks, there are small marks, they are called pockmarks. So call them dimples, call them pockmarks, call them very small craters, they all mean the same words. Same material, 304 stainless steel, even at higher 3500 times magnification, Image shows change to material caused by the ductile fracture. The metal looks torn and pulled. No evidence of cleavage or intergranular fracture, right? There is no big fracture surfaces, there are no cracks on the grain boundaries. So no evidence of cleavage or intergranular fracture that characterize brittle fracture. Note the particles scattered around the surface of the fracture in and around the microvoids, right? So in and around the microvoids, there are those impurity particles and so on, right? So we have shown you 3 micrographs of the same failure at 1000, 2500 and now 3500 magnification. Now let us see brittle fracture, right? Brittle fracture. We know that it will be either big cleavages or intergranular of some kind, right? Cleavage fracture pattern is characteristic of brittle failure. There are big fracture surfaces with river patterns. There are no dimples almost, right? So this is cleavage is typical of brittle fracture. This is a micrograph of the failure of alumina. It is a ceramic Al2O3 and it is at 5000 magnification. If you see 5.00 K. The way the SEM is worked at 1 kilovolt and one size is 6 microns. So all this comes from the way you are working the scanning electron microscope. Fractures between the grains, intergranular, in some cases a fracture on the grain boundary, but right, and some particles and so on also there. So also visible are small voids in the material. There are voids here. So small voids are also there. These voids, function as stress concentrators, and these flaws greatly reduce the overall strength of the sample, right? So this fractures on the grain boundaries, very sharp fractures on the grain boundaries, right? And so on. Much of the same intergranular fracture as the previous figure, but it also shows some cleavage fracture. So you see fracture on the grain boundaries, but then large surfaces of fractures are also there. So sort of a mixed one, and if there are some river patterns and so on. So there is intergranular mixed with some transgranular cleavage fracture, and then there are some voids. So note the voids in the surface. The ceramic was made by a process called sintering. You know what is sintering, but let me repeat it. Sintering is done by heating microscopic particles of alumina until they melt together. So voids are formed where particles of material were not packed close enough and failed to bond together. So the voids are because of the manufacturing techniques of sintering, and because it is alumina, alumina is a ceramic, ceramics fail by brittle fracture. So there is a combination of intergranular and transgranular in this picture. Okay. At 10,000 times magnification, right, you can see it. So the brittle facets, right, one face, another face, the brittle facets of alumina fracture surface stand out very clearly, and river marks of cleavage fracture are visible on some, not on all of them, but some river marks can be seen in some places. Some river marks can be seen. So some, right, so we can enlarge it and see more. These lines occur when a fracture cuts through a grain of a material, right? So this is much more of a cleavage type where river patterns are there. We showed you some micrographs of this kind when we were discussing cleavage and so on, and some we are showing again. But as I say again and again, right, this is the first time we are doing something like this. So, right, by showing you a few of these, we are not going to become experts, but at least you have a taste of it, right? At least you have a taste of it, and you can understand a little bit, and you can clearly differentiate between dimples and very sharp intergranular along the grain boundaries and very clear big faces of cleavage. So at least that you see this is exactly on the grain boundaries. This is dimples all over, and here there are big flat surfaces. And whenever there are river patterns, oh yes, these river patterns are there, so this is typical cleavage, right? So at least some basics. But as I keep on repeating, right, not just in this course, we do so many courses on thermofluids engineering, on solid mechanics and applied mechanics and design, on fluids and so forth, on controls and dynamics. So in the end, you are going to end up in a job in any one of these areas, right? But we don't know whether you would go to Sohar Aluminum or Valley Steel or Alupco Steel, Alupco Extrusion or PDO or Shell. So we prepare mechanical engineers for any type of career. And once you end up in a company, say, which is making steels, and it is making a few types of steels, and you are given a training program for a few months, then you start to understand all these graphs and patterns, because that is now your daily thing. Now you are not doing the rest of the 90% of mechanical engineering, you are focusing on one part of it. But your whole understanding of statics and dynamics and solid mechanics and machine design and fluid mechanics and thermodynamics, all that understanding is at the back of you. So any of that knowledge, whenever it is really needed, you have the background, right? You have the background. So we showed you some of these fractures at the microscopic, and with that we end the chapter. This is the end of the chapter 5. Also, this is the end of the course for us, right? So very quickly, if you recap, in chapter 1, which was divided in chapter 1A and 1B, there was general introduction to fracture mechanics, and there was a special focus on fatigue and fracture and creep, right? And we combined a lot of the basic knowledge in that introduction chapter from your different courses on material science and manufacturing and machine design and solid mechanics and so on. Also, we included some new very basic information from fracture mechanics. Then we moved to chapter 2, or whatever the number is, but chapter 2 of linear elastic fracture mechanics, right? Fracture mechanics as it was originally developed only for brittle materials or only for ductile materials that had become brittle by ductile to brittle transition or so on, right? So linear elastic fracture mechanics, and we covered a lot of things inside there. Then we moved to the third chapter on elastic plastic fracture mechanics, which is more of non-brittle materials, which is more of metals and alloys where there is significant plasticity. In chapter 2, at the end of chapter 2, in linear elastic fracture mechanics, there were some corrections, right? That the theories of Griffith and so on can have certain corrections for a small amount of plasticity at the crack tip. So some metals was introduced there, but then mainly the generally more ductile metals were under elastic plastic fracture mechanics. On the way, we covered lots of things, how an actual fracture test is done, how a fracture propagates, under brittle conditions, how it propagates under ductile conditions, how do you measure all these different things, and so on. And then in this chapter, chapter 5, mechanisms, right? Material mechanisms of failure. And we have covered 3 basic mechanisms: mechanisms for ductile failure, mechanisms for intergranular failure, and mechanisms for transgranular or cleavage failure. And towards the end, we have shown you a lot of examples, visual examples of micrographs at the fracture surfaces, which are called fractographs, and the whole field is called fractography. Hopefully you have enjoyed the course. Hopefully you have learned this major vital lesson, that if there are visual cracks and so on observed in any components in any equipment or machine, there is no necessity to immediately throw that part away and replace it. But if you know the material, if you know the loading, if you measure the largest crack size, then you can predict the fracture life. And if you can predict the fracture life, then you don't have to keep at least one extra of each component always there, or you don't have to go through catastrophic failure when suddenly a part bursts or fractures and it stops the whole operation for a long time until the part can be replaced, and there is a big chance of damaging the other parts also. So if you can predict the fracture, then before the fracture, a safe time before the fracture, you can replace it. So you can have a very good replacement strategy for all the components and parts in your factory, and you can have a very good inventory that how and when should we buy new parts and so on. And then there are a lot of other things that fracture mechanics can lead you to. Unfortunately, one, because the whole semester was online, we had no access to labs and so on. Secondly, because the type of experiments that are usually required for fracture mechanics are not available, so we could not do almost any of the experimental part of it for you. But hopefully you have learned enough, and hopefully you have enjoyed the course and it has added to you as a mechanical engineer. One thing you should be very certain of: there are very, very few universities, even in very advanced countries in the world, where even an introductory course on fracture mechanics is done at the undergraduate level. You can think of yourselves as very fortunate, because usually we start this course at least at a master's PhD level and so on, right? So thanks a lot for being with us, and a big ma'as salama from the whole course.